guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
And welcome into a Reckless Speculation Thursday. Phil is out. Now, Phil is not out of all programming today, but if you have been watching the show for the past week, you know that he's been battling the after effects of COVID, which include his voice sounding like he smokes no fewer than 4 packs a day, which is not a good thing. And so he is going to sit this one out. But damn it, you know what? Forget the blood that flows through our veins that carries the love of sports. You know what flows through my veins? Because Doogie is here, Dex is here. It's Reckless Speculation. It's so much Reckless Speculation.
It is. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday, the 1st of November. So let me get this straight. So Phil will do some work today, but he's sitting out Reckless Speculation Thursday on this specific show. Where the heck do I fall pecking order?
Well, it's not you. It's not you. It's that at least the two of us can suck enough air out of the room. He doesn't need his voice on this show.
I don't know. I might be taking this one personally.
Don't take it personally.
I think it's kind of like, and we'll have an update here. Good segue. We have an update, but it's kind of like Blake Cashman being limited at practice. You know, there's certain things he's going to do, and there's certain things he's not going to do. Just like Blake Cashman. That's Phil.
But he knows that Doogie is so good at his job, at his position, that he's not necessary, like Blake Cashman was. Anyway, let's start with the news of the day that came across this morning. Ian Rappaport, NFL media, reporting that it's looking like Trevor Lawrence is not going to play for the Jaguars on Sunday. And so the Vikings, I would say they're catching a break here, but the Jaguars are 2-7, and Trevor's not exactly having a great year. So it's not like Joe Montana not playing in his prime. But nonetheless, this should set up the Brian Flores defense to have a pretty big day. Wouldn't you think, Darren?
I would agree. So it's looking like Mac Jones. Now, hey, last time Mac Jones played the Vikings, Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was that 2 years ago?
Yeah.
But that wasn't a Brian Flores defense. So, yes, Mac Jones, all the best to you facing all the schemes that Brian will throw your way on Sunday. Speaking of the aforementioned Blake Cashman, what if I told you I would not be shocked if he goes from limited participant on Wednesday to full participant on Thursday? So the opposite of one Phil Mackey. So Phil, not a full participant today, but Blake trending in the right direction. Bottom line, it's looking good. Even if he happens to be limited later today, it's looking good after missing 3 games that Blake Cashman will be back. I've yet to hear any deep concern on Ivan Pace Jr. That would be the other defensive question right now. Knee injury kept him out of practice on Wednesday. Andrew Van Ginkel is fine. That was more rest related. But Ivan Pace Jr. listed as out on Wednesday with a knee injury. In this moment, Thursday morning, as we record this, at 10 o'clock a.m. Central, I've not heard any deep concern about his availability for Sunday.
Now he came back in the game against the Colts. It looked bad because his leg got basically rolled up on. It looked bad. But anyway, I saw him. I was out there on Wednesday. I saw him at practice, not participating, but walking absolutely fine. So, there was no, limp. There was no, wrap that I saw. So, yes, I will back up what you said. I think it's smart. I think it's precautionary. I would expect him to play, though, in the game on Sunday.
Yes, I mean, heck, any time that a guy is out there, even though we're limited in terms of how much access we get for practice, that is normally a positive sign. If a guy isn't seen, we can read between those lines. Even last week, I should have mentioned on Tuesday before the Gabriel Murphy news became official, he was actually out on the field right when we were allowed in doing some work. Then he escaped, right? But we saw him. I certainly saw him, so I should have been able to read between the lines. Not that he's going to impact the defense anytime real soon, but that practice window has opened for Gabriel Murphy, who certainly shined in the preseason.
Mm-hmm. Jackson?
And I know Kevin O'Connell said yesterday, Dukes, that the hope is that Will Reichard it's the 4-week minimum on IR, hopefully back, afterwards, or maybe not even season ending, which would be obviously the worst case scenario. Now that they have brought in Parker Romo, not John Parker Romo. It is now Parker Romo. I might be going by Robert Goff going forward. I might just take my middle name and just slap it on the last name and do that. But is the fear that, or is the optimism that Will Reichard is just going to miss at least the minimum of the 4 games and hopefully be back by the end of the season at some point, Dukes?
Yeah, I've not heard of season-ending fear. Now, I don't know if he'll be back like that 5th week, that 5th game. So do the math on the 4, then that 5th game remains to be seen. Now, I'm Parker Romo, yes. He told us in the locker room, when I say told us, Channel 5, we were a part of that. I wasn't physically there on Wednesday, but my colleague Joe Schmidt was. Yes, Parker Romo, not John Parker Romo. Parker Romo came in on Tuesday for a tryout, beat out 4 others, including NFL veteran Randy Bullock. So they brought in Randy. They brought in some other names. It was a kickoff. And certainly they had a book on Parker Romo. I don't know how deep a kickoff it was, right? They certainly knew enough about Parker when they signed him in the offseason, his success in the XFL, having him in training camp for at least a little bit of time, OTAs, minicamp, all that. So he always had, a favorable spot, right? Like once he got the invite to come in, which I alluded to on Tuesday morning in this space, it was always trending in that direction. There's a reason why I only mentioned him, not some others, but they did bring in Randy Bullock, a few others, just to create a little bit of competition.
I am a little bit concerned when you have to go get a new kicker and long snapper, because Andrew DePaula was trying to make a tackle on a punt return on Sunday, broke his hand, now out. So they brought in a long snapper. They brought in a kicker. This is a very, how can I put this? We take it for granted, but those guys, as Dukes, we have seen on practice fields, work for hours on this, the synchronicity between the snap and the hold and the kick. So I'm not trying to sound an alarm here. I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but a reckless speculator would say far less than ideal to have a new long snapper and kicker at the same exact time.
Yes. Now there is optimism on DePaula with the hand procedure that he'll be back after the 4 weeks, or certainly back this season, that it's not a season-ending injury. So they do have a new long snapper. His name is Jake McQuade. Has done it for a really long time, but they did bring in another long snapper on Tuesday to create a little bit of competition. That was Joe Shimko, was in camp with the Arizona Cardinals. So certainly Jake, with the experience, had the advantage. Yeah, I mean, heck, trust me, Jake McQuade, Ryan Wright, spending a lot of time, snap, toe holder, extra time this week in practice. I suppose the idea, Judd, is it doesn't come down to a crucial kick on Sunday or the following Sunday in Nashville, that the schedule sets up pretty darn favorably, at least for the next 2 games. We can debate November 24th, that game at Soldier against Chicago, but certainly at Jacksonville, at Tennessee, very winnable games the Vikings are being favored by a good amount of points that, even if there happens to be some sort of snafu on a snap, a missed kick, whatever it might be, that the Vikings should be able to overcome that at least the next 2 weeks.
Dalton Ryner, who was cleared and was active last week against the Colts, is his status still just kind of waiting for an opportunity, waiting for an injury? I mean, they obviously seem pretty steadfast of not moving off Ed Ingram yet, Dukes. I mean, do you feel like he's knocking on the door, though, of maybe getting some more snaps on the offensive line? What do you think their plan is there with Dalton Ryner now healthy and good to go?
Yeah, I mean, I thought if there ever was a chance it was going to happen, it was going to be into the Colts game based on how Ed had performed the previous 2 weeks. I thought I don't know what his PFF grade was, but I felt like Ed was okay on Sunday, maybe even above okay. Not great by any stretch, but was fine. I've not heard any steam in this moment of Ed Ingram losing his starting job, but I have thought, Judd, with Dalton getting more and more reps at right guard, not familiar with that position, but getting more comfortable at that position, that it eventually is going to happen. I just don't have a sense it's going to happen this Sunday.
Speaking of going to potentially happen, or past tense, happened, did you get any steam about the Vikings at the deadline where they didn't make moves? Now they did get Akers October 15th, Cam Robinson a week ago Tuesday, so they certainly made moves going up to the trade deadline. Did you get any steam of any 11th hour potential moves that might have fallen through for the Vikings before 3 o'clock on Tuesday?
Was told they had some interest in Tre'Davious White, who ended up going from the Rams to the Ravens for not very much. But was that agent driven? Was that conference driven? I also don't know like how strong that interest was. I mean, I think the Vikings made a lot of calls, inquired on a lot of guys. I mean, hey, some of the guys that they at least inquired on, right? Some of those interior defensive linemen, some of the stud cornerbacks, ultimately, those guys did not get moved. And so I thought they would make a depth move, at least for one of cornerback or interior defensive linemen. But hey, it's not like we saw a whole lot of movement. I mean, the only needle-moving move on Tuesday was Marshon Lattimore from New Orleans to Washington. I am told the Vikings were not in on Marshon Lattimore.
And that price tag, though, which was fairly substantial, going from the Commanders to the Saints, I think told the story, though. Like, I think the Vikings actually wanted to go, at least at corner or defensive tackle, big game hunting. But I think that they just probably didn't have the ammunition, right?
Well, sure.
Unless teams would take 26 picks, right? You're down to 3 picks. So unless you're going to give up your 25 first rounder, and now the Commanders in their trade with the Saints gave up like 3 draft picks, not a first rounder. So I actually don't doubt that the Vikings were trying, but I do think that there was probably a big sticking point, and we just don't have enough left. And then you get into, do you really want to deplete your 2026 draft significantly? So I think there was a definite conundrum here.
Definite conundrum, absolutely. But, like, do I think that, like, the 25 first-round pick was completely off limits? Not necessarily, but, like, the Giants were not moving Dexter Lawrence. The Titans were not moving Jeffrey Simmons. I don't think the Vikings would have given up the 25 first for J.C. Horn, the cornerback in Carolina, but you could have made a case that you would have if Carolina would have done that. But I don't sense it ever got far down any sort of road. But I don't think it was like steadfast, like no way, no how. We're not moving our 25 first. But I think it would have had to be one of those stud interior defensive linemen. And I don't think those talks ever got off the ground.
Hey, Dukes, is your sense that an extension for Kevin O'Connell or Kwesi, do you feel that at this point, I know it's still, week 10, they could still extend them mid-season. Do you feel that this is more of a postseason after 2024 thing with them? Do you feel this is in the works and could surprise us at any moment? I felt like we were maybe going to get at least a KOC extension at some point this season. Now we're halfway through it. I know Kwesi's status, they're kind of tied together, but can you give one extension without giving one the other? What is your sense on the timing of the contract extensions for Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah?
Yeah, I mean, Declan, specifically on KOC, like if it was going to happen in season, it would have happened bye week after starting off 5-0. Certainly his representation had thought about that possibility, maybe even broached that topic externally. Right? So, like, it's going to happen. I can't stress enough. This organization thinks the world of Kevin O'Connell. And, hey, the way this thing is trending, one of the best free agent classes in Vikings history, I don't think that's hyperbole. I don't think that's a stretch based on the activity from March. I think you extend both. I think at this point, Kwesi deserves an extension. The Wolves have done it before. If they need to eat money, they can, but it's trending in the direction of both these gentlemen getting contract extensions. But yeah, Declan, more so February, March, off season, April, May, sometime in the off season compared to now in season.
More scoops to come, but first, let's give a quick shout out to the exclusive personal injury law firm of Purple Daily, all of our shows, basically, because that's Nicolay Law. Nicolay Law knows that when your loved one gets injured, ordinary life can come to a stop and things can get complicated during that time. Insurance companies, they're likely to pressure you. That's no fun because they don't care if you get better. They don't care if your bills are piling up, and they don't care that you may not be able to work. But Nicolay Law does. They've seen every play the insurance companies have, and they'll make sure you get the compensation that you deserve after an accident. So if you've been injured, get Minnesota's local award-winning injury lawyers. Get Nicolay. Start your path to winning at nicolaylaw.com or give them a call at 1-855-NICOLAY. That's Nicolay, Nicolet. And Dex, if we're all looking to possibly have some fun over the weekend on football, where can we turn to?
I would go to underdog, especially our new users who still get the 50% deposit match, plus our current users that love playing along and sending me all those great pick'ems that they're making every week. We got Thursday Night Football tonight. NBA, NHL is also back. You can make cross-sport entries. Plenty of awesome stuff like bonuses and token boosts too on Underdog. Go download the Underdog app. It's available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Promo code SCORE for new users gets a 50% deposit match.
Dukes, I got a question for you on the Wolves. I was there on, Monday night for the Charlotte game, in which they got down by 7 and then just kicked a lousy Hornets team and shorthanded. They kicked their butt.
I don't think they're that lousy, by the way.
Well, they were on
I think
Monday
Lee, the
night,
new
but
coach,
they were without two guys.
I think they have a chance. They do.
Okay,
they need to get healthy, but they have a chance.
Okay, fair enough. But I want to talk to you about Jaden McDaniels, which we touched on a little bit on Tuesday as well. Because as you said, the contract has kicked in. I feel like I'm watching a player. I feel like a big part of the problem is not talent. I feel like a big part of the problem is the up and down nature of how he feels about the game. If things aren't going well, it affects both sides of the ball. How does Chris Finch get to a point where he can get just, if nothing else, flat out more consistency, do you think, from Jaden?
Well, I mean, how about run some plays for him? That certainly would help. I've said it for a long time, Judd. You go back to Washington, University of Washington, even before then, Jaden has a lot of offensive talent. We've really yet to see that come to fruition. Even when he scores 20-something points, it's normally not a play run for him. Run some action specifically for him. I would like to see that. I'm not sure it's going to happen anytime real soon, but that is what I'm rooting for. He is still a difference maker to me. One of the 10 best on-ball defenders in the league. So there is a ton of value there. But yes, now when you're making, the 5-year, $137 million contract extension has kicked in, the expectations rise a ton. He has to offer more. It's just the way it works when you're making this much money. And so I'd like to think it'll eventually happen. The beauty is, if he's in a rut, guess what? You're not getting your 32 to 34 minutes a night. Finch feels comfortable. He feels like he's got 8 starters, right? When you can go with Nas, Dante, and Nikhil off the bench, you can start any of those guys. But those 3 guys, Dante, Nas, Nikhil, feel so comfortable coming off the bench that they're almost handcuffed, right? Like, to me, Dante is so good. Like, I can make a case Dante is their third most valuable player right now. Now, if you want to argue Gobert is 2, Ant is 1, we know that. I can even make a case for Nas. I get it, though, Rudy. But somewhere Dante is like 3 or 4, depending on where you want to put Rudy. I get it, although we haven't seen them be a real elite defensive team this year outside of maybe the second half on Monday. But outside of that, they haven't been great defensively, but I get it. Relatively small sample size. But I think the world of Dante DiVincenzo. Heck, they do. And so there are some moving parts there. Finch still trying to work through the rotation. Who is that 9th man? We saw shades of Josh Minot over the weekend. Will we see a little bit more of Josh moving forward? I think so. I told you guys preseason I saw a role for him. And so it may not be on a nightly basis. It may not be tonight in Chicago or tomorrow night against the Blazers. Although back-to-back, I would think we'll see some Josh at least one of these 2 games tomorrow night against lowly Portland. That makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, on Jaden, he has to play better. And hey, keep in mind, right? Like, the Wolves gave up all those first-round picks to Utah because Utah so badly wanted Jaden McDaniels. The Wolves said in that moment, we are not moving Jaden McDaniels. They have received a number of trade inquiries over the years, especially when he was still on his rookie contract. So many teams are big fans of Jaden McDaniels. They feel like there's a lot more there. So if they feel that way, the Wolves should feel the same way too, which I do think they do, but it's now on Finch, the coaching staff, to find different ways to use Jaden.
Dukes, I don't know if you saw the viral reaction from the Hornets broadcast when Rob Dillingham checked into the game against Charlotte. It's actually pretty funny. If anyone hasn't seen it, go. I mean, they were in they were in disbelief over this ovation that Rob Dillingham get. It's awful announcing posted it. It's a great thing.
All right, I'll find it.
What is Dillingham's future like? You mentioned Josh Minot. Is this a better opportunity for Rob to maybe go to the G League and play more significant minutes? Is it more beneficial him being here on the bench and maybe trying to squeak in as that ninth man? What is the future with Rob Dillingham?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I mean, I'll be surprised, Declan, if we don't see him getting some run, playing 30-something minutes for the Iowa Wolves when the schedule allows. Look at the schedule, make the 3.5-hour drive south, maybe even stop at Diamond Joe's, right? I don't think he'll be stopping at Diamond Joe's, but I would.
I do.
I absolutely
I do
would.
It all the time. Love it.
Yeah. It's a nice, easy drive. So, they still think the world of Rob. I mean, there's a reason why they gave up as much as they did. Fortunate to be able to land a top 10 pick. Their internal opinion of Rob hasn't changed one bit. So they're happy with what they are seeing in practice. Him being one of the first guys in the gym, one of the last guys to leave. So work ethic wise, being a sponge, absorbing all that knowledge, specifically from Mike Conley Jr. And so I don't know if he's getting any legit game run anytime soon, Declan, but there is value in having him learning to be a pro, being around Mike, others, at least for the foreseeable future. But deeper into winter, it does make sense. He needs to play at some point this season, so you get him all those minutes in Iowa eventually. Maybe not immediately, but eventually.
Go ahead, Judd.
Dex, I was going to say, on the Twins, there's been some interesting stuff coming out of the GM meetings, which are being held in San Antonio, Dukes, including the fact that the door was open. It feels like it's been swung wide open for the fact that Twins are likely to make trades. No surprise, they're not going to be adding a ton of guys off the open market. What does that signify to you, though, as far as who is going to be moved, probably, who's going to be shopped? Because I think it's gone from a reckless speculation, this makes sense, to, oh, no, this is definitely going to at least come close to happening, if not happen.
All right, we'll call it reckless speculation, but you bring in the hitting coach with his Orioles ties. Who can you find on that Orioles roster that makes sense? Is there a match? Ryan O'Hearn, somebody like that. Is there a match there? And then things fall into place after that. Do I think 100% that Jose Miranda is on the roster come March? I'm not there.
Yeah.
It could be, but I'm not all the way there. Where does Royce Lewis slot in? Don't know if it'll be at third. Could it perhaps be at second? I mean, Declan, you can probably offer a little bit more insight than I can, but I think there's a lot of moving parts based on how these trade talks advance. And certainly now, hey, everybody's leaving San Antonio today, but over the last 72 hours, a number of seeds have been planted. Those talks can pick up in a few weeks at the winter meetings. But yes, I absolutely expect the Twins to be active on the trade front.
Yeah, it sounds like they also are keeping the idea of Royce Lewis at second base a pretty big possibility. I think Brooks
Lee, I mean, it hasn't been put to bed, put it that way.
No. And Brooks Lee is a more natural third baseman.
Yes.
And Royce, who was very anti that, and I think there is some pridefulness there with Royce that he does still want to be the everyday third baseman, but he also felt he was ill prepared for that opportunity at the time. So if he has plenty of time to prepare mentally, then physically, have it by spring training where he's getting reps, I think there's a more open-mindedness to Royce, obviously being potentially your opening day and maybe every day second baseman.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think he's like some stubborn SOB. I understand. I can relate to Royce that in the moment of the season, big-time games, right? You're still fighting for a playoff spot there in September. These big, important games, right? These games that have a little bit more meaning than April and May. And they're asking him to get some reps in at second base. And he's like, no, like the 3 hours between 2 and 5 o'clock pregame, that's not enough time for me to ramp up to being comfortable to playing that position in a big-time game. But yes, you give him the runway of all of spring training and his winter workouts. If you give him the heads up in early January, so when he's down in Texas working with Marcus Semien, some other guys like that. But you think about Marcus with his experience. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did Marcus make the move? Shortstop to second base?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Because they have Seager in Texas, so Semien plays second base, right?
Yeah, he's good.
Well, I mean, that's one of Royce Lewis's guys. So that's just one of any number of people he could pick the brain of. But yeah, you give him enough time to adjust. It's not like he's anti. Put it that way. I've not heard he's anti. Just in that moment in September, I just think he was like, I need a little bit more preparation time. Well, now he can have that if that's the move they make over the next 4 or 5 months. I'm with you. Brooks Lee to third base does make a lot of sense.
Question for both of you guys. Do you guys feel like with what transpired during the collapse, and it especially felt like, well, Royce and perhaps some of the other younger guys took some hits from some veterans, from Rocco, that they felt was not unfair. Do you guys feel that there is repair necessary at all between those sides? Or do you think that that was such a collapse that now that it's going to be gone, they're going to show up for spring training, that it will be forgotten? Because my thought is this. You want to make, I mean, Royce is a huge part of what you want to become. So you definitely don't want to leave things unsaid if they should be addressed. But start with Dukes. Do you think it's necessary to address it? Did you feel like it was toxic enough, I guess?
Well, I mean, I think there was some toxicity. I mean, I don't think it was anywhere near kumbaya, especially in September. Correa, his relationship with some of those young guys. But I don't know how much repair needs to be done. I think it's more, one conversation. Just throw everything out there, then they can move on. Yeah. And so I fully expect them to do that. But yeah, I mean, Declan, you were in there every day in September. I mean, I don't think we even talked up that angle enough. Maybe we did, but others on the beat, not so much. But there were some fractured relationships in September.
Yeah. I feel like it was definitely a lot of finger pointing and, trying to figure out what the hell's going on here. And you're frustrated. It's easy to finger point. And I think them it sucks the way the season ended, but I think them being able to walk away from this and kind of reset things a little bit and just try this again in spring training, I think was beneficial to get people away from each other. When you collapse like that, it's toxic all around. And yes, I didn't love how veterans were looking at younger players, but younger players also still not taking responsibility. There was arguments to both sides there. It wasn't just one group was in the wrong or one group was in the right. I think there was a natural separation of let's step back here. However, you can't just not address that elephant in the room. So I think there probably were some exit interviews, some exit conversations. And then once, spring training rolls around, they're reporting here in 3 months. There's that excitement, that feel of baseball being back. And I don't really look at that room as being a toxic room again in 2025.
No, I think by opening day or even by the start of spring training, everything will be just fine. Twins Fest, any number of other, opportunities to connect in the winter, they will put that to bed. But I do think, a conversation or two absolutely needs to take place.
Final scoops, Dukes. What's in the reckless speculations / scoops Santy bag that you got going right now?
All right. Well, I mean, continuing the Twins theme, they have verbalized at least some level of interest in retaining Carlos Santana. Congratulations, rightfully so. Wins the American League Gold Glove Award for first base on Sunday. But think about when they signed Carlos last winter. I mean, it was February? I mean, it was late. Yeah. I mean, so I don't anticipate anything happening anytime real soon, at least Twins-wise, on Santana. Plus, we've laid out the moving parts of how much salary do they have to play with? Can they move a guy like Paddock, a guy like Vasquez? If they do they need to eat any money, especially on Vasquez? But there is some level of interest in retaining Carlos Santana, but also mindful that, hey, it's not like he performed well in September, also did not perform well the first 3-4 weeks of the season. So maybe it's a mix and match. Maybe it's not using Carlos quite as much as you did in 2024. And hey, he may not even be back. I mean, he's jumped around enough, but he would like to be back. There's definite interest in being back. And the Twins have verbalized, hey, we're not shutting the door, at least. Maybe that's the way to paint the picture. We are not shutting the door on that possibility. The Twins tried to sign a free agent reliever. His name is Rico Garcia, has pitched in the majors with the Washington Nationals and Oakland A's, but he instead chose a minor league offer from the New York Mets that includes an invite to big league spring training. But we see the Twins, other organizations, the Mets, everyone sign minor league free agents throughout the offseason. Think about the Scott Blewitts of the world, Josh Stallman, although that was actually a major league deal. But, guys like that, right? So the Twins are going to sign any number of minor league free agents, but this is a guy they tried to sign but weren't able to complete the deal, weren't able to sell him on joining the Twins. I had a nice chat on Tuesday with Justin Ross, Gopher Basketball 2025 commit, playing for SoCal Academy in the Los Angeles area from Virginia. He told me the hardest school to turn down was Old Dominion. Had a really good relationship with the head coach. Versatile wing, not a scorer, so he feels like, hey, he's been slept on. He doesn't have the gaudy, points per game numbers, but he feels like he can defend 1 through 4. I mean, with the Gophers, he'll defend mostly 2s and 3s, but hey, they have enough open scholarships for the 25-26 season. So, hey, you bring in Kai Shinholster from the East Coast, you bring in now Justin Ross. Frank Mitchell of the Gopher basketball team, more like day-to-day. I mentioned last week than on Tuesday, he wasn't going to play in the opener last night. Nice performance by the Gophers last night, by the way. Dawson Garcia looking like he definitely has a chance to be Big Ten Player of the Year. I get it. The Gophers need to be competitive in the Big Ten. Like if they finish now, hey, preseason, they're picked to finish 18th? I'll bet you anything. They're not finishing 18th. Can I bet on that, Declan, on your app? Can I bet on where the Gophers finish in the Big Ten?
Not an underdog, but you can take some props, over under points, rebounds, some of that type of stuff.
All
but
right.
no Big Ten projections quite yet.
All right. Well, maybe I'll need to do that with Dawson as the season moves on, because I am bullish, big time. I am a big time fan of Dawson Garcia. I really do think he has a chance to be, minimum first team All Big Ten, but in the mix, as long as the Gophers win some games, in the mix for Big Ten Player of the Year. Caleb Williams, no, not the Bears quarterback, the Gophers guard, the transfer from McAllister. He was sick last night, so he should be okay for Saturday. Omaha against the Gophers Saturday afternoon. The Miami Heat will have a scout in attendance to watch Dawson Garcia. I'm sure some others, but mostly Dawson Garcia. NBA teams will be in and out throughout the season.
Awesome stuff, Dukes. Thanks so much. And another, I would say, very successful reckless speculation Thursday, Darren.
So, all right, well, good. I appreciate the passing grade. Thanks, Judd. Have a great weekend.
Catch up
full
with you
participants.
On Tuesday.
Full participants.
Yeah, no Mackey, but that's fine.
Showing
up.
We survived.
We'll talk to Dukes on Tuesday. Thank you, Doogie. Appreciate you.
All right, boys. Take it easy. See ya.
Yep. Purple Daily coming up too with Thor Nystrom on a Thursday.